lines or something like that.
That's
So
hilarious. All right, we're live. Good morning. It is 9 o'clock on this Sábado Gigante on Cafecito con Colón. It's Sábado Gigante because we have Alex Horton with us today. He is an incredible leader, a great visionary, established the International District Economic Development Center, and just is crushing it over there in the community where he was raised. It's a beautiful story. You're about to hear it right this morning on Cafecito con Colón. Thanks for stopping in. We'll get started here in just a second. Alex, you have your coffee ready?
you know what I do? My cup of coffee's ready. Boom.
He's got the Denver Broncos cup there. Looking good.
We might not have no football season this year, but you know what? I have my cup, so that's all right.
How about the Black National Anthem to start out the season like that?
I know that's pretty cool, actually. That's pretty cool.
I'm going to post a story about the Black National Anthem this morning on our links.
Oh, nice, nice.
Yeah, kind of the history of the story and or the anthem rather.
Wow. Yeah, no, I think that's going to be, and even like the Redskins having to change their name, like it's just this all trickle down effect on things,
How long has that conversation been going on?
Oh, for a long time. Well, Cleveland started it off first. The Cleveland Indians, they changed.
Oh, that's right. That's right. I'm gonna get some more coffee real quick. Be right back.
Yeah, me too.
All right. All right, 9:01. Let's get this party going here on this incredible 4th of July 2020. 4th of July like I've never seen before under the current circumstances of the COVID-19 pandemic and the current circumstances where we continue to try and decide how can we all play a role in creating a more perfect union. And at the front and center of that conversation is how do we listen? How do we listen to what Black men and women have been trying to tell us for years and years and years and generations? And on Cafecito con Colón for nearly 6 weeks now, we have been trying to provide a place and a space for Black voices to be heard. Since the Tuesday after the murder of Mr. Floyd, we had dedicated, I should say there's just me. I don't have any support here. Then my two little laptops, a cool little ring light so you can see my pecosos here, my freckles. And I decided to clear the deck of all the guests that I had scheduled and said, we are only going to have Black voices on Cafecito con Colón for a while. I will admit that I certainly didn't expect it to go for 6 weeks. But when I looked around and saw all the incredible Black leaders around me, I have really enjoyed every day. And it was funny, I think it was either Chad Cooper or Mike Silva or one of those guys said, how in the world does Brian Colon know all these Black people? We got to talk to Brian to find out where our community is. And which just was, of course, awesome and really very funny. And they were exaggerating a little bit. But look, let me get started. Alex, I'm going to put up some links and then we'll get started with a visit, huh?
All right, let's do it.
Great. The other thing I want to do as I start out this morning is tell you that I committed a couple of weeks ago to finally get through a book that belonged to my mentor that his widow gave me when he passed away. My dear surrogate mom, Ophelia Munzer, gave me Dick Munzer's book here, which is by Jerry Denton. It was written in 1976, and it was dedicated to my mentor, Dick Munzer, with appreciation and best wishes from Jerry in 1977. And I was going through some stuff and I found this book, and it was real timely because we're getting ready to do Independence Day. And there's this great letter dated in 1977 to my pops there. And he was signed by Jeremiah Denton, Rear Admiral in the U.S. Navy Commandant, and thanking Dick for his service, along with an invitation to Dick and Ophelia Munzer for dinner at the White House on October 4th, 1977 at 8 o'clock sharp.
Wow.
But this book, it's called When Hell Was in Session, and it's Jerry Denton's autobiography about his 7.5 years as a prisoner of war in Vietnam. And what a heavy book to read right before Independence Day. It is very, very detailed and powerful account of those 7.5 years and what he and his colleagues went through as prisoners of war in North Vietnam for 7.5 years. So I wanted to point that out on this Independence Day and thank Ophelia for giving me that book. It certainly was a powerful read. All right, so let me get to my links for the day, because we are now at about 5 minutes after the hour, and I want to make sure that I get to Alex and maximize our opportunity to hear from this dynamic, incredible visionary of a young man. You look, when you ladies and gentlemen hear Alex speak, and when you learn of his vision that he brought to the International District, and I should say brought home to the International District, you will not believe that he is just a 28-year-old man. I mean, this guy has some phenomenal miles on his tires, and he's got a lot of road ahead of him. He is unbelievable. So let's see. Let me give you some links, and then we're going to get to Alex. I saw lots of great stories about 4th of July and how we recognize that and honor that during this time of reflection and a time where we are trying to know better so that we can be better. This USA Today story by Alexandra Hudson was contributed, and she speaks about a lot about our connectivity, our foundings, and where we can go from here. And I thought that it was quite powerful. And the other story I think that was in the USA Today, I'm going to skip that one. There was a great story that I read that talked about on this Independence Day, we should all take some time today to actually reflect upon our interdependence, our dependence on one another, and the need for us to work together on this Independence Day to make sure that we have created a more perfect union, to make sure that there are not members in our community and in our society who are marginalized to such an extent that they become invisible, to such an extent that they become voiceless. And I think that on Independence Day is a perfect time to think about interdependence. I live in this beautiful community that is Albuquerque, and I am interdependent. I have an interdependence with Alex Horton, who is doing everything he can to lift up a part of my community that is literally the deepest pocket of poverty in Albuquerque, but also the most culturally rich pocket in our community in Albuquerque. The part of our community the last 20 years of her life as an educator at middle school. I should say 20 years plus. She's now past 20 years. I think 21 or 22 now. And Alex is working so diligently to make a difference in that part of Albuquerque. So that interdependence, and I hope we can think about that on this Independence Day. Okay, so here is, I was telling Alex right before we came to camera, we were talking about the NFL and his Denver Bronco Cup there. Where's your Denver Bronco Cup, Alex? There it is. He's got that Broncos. I got my familia there. That's And this was gifted to me by Altamira, a great nonprofit here in our community that serves many, many families. But this story that I posted up from CNN tells the history of the song that is known as the Black National Anthem, which is like the first game of the season. They'll play the national anthem. For 28-year-olds.
Yeah.
Okay, good. There's an old sketch on The Simpsons called Vote or Die, and there's this guy, David Mulryan, who reinvigorated that expression here in Albuquerque. But anyway, I've been thinking about The Simpsons lately. So, but Robert Gibson, dangerous buck, Buck Dangerous, and Robert, he was talking last night on his show. He's got a great podcast and vlog that you can watch while they're podcasting, and he just cracks me up. And he was talking about that one of his buddies called him and said, "You know why they're willing to play the Black National Anthem at the opening of the season for the NFL, right?" And so I guess Robert says, "Well, why?" And he says, "Because there's not going to be anybody in the stands. Nobody's even going to be there to hear it." That's the only reason they're willing to play it for that first game. But look, there's a great history of that national anthem. And along with that, let me post the New York Times story that really speaks to the fact that this Black Lives Movement, in its 7th year or so, and after the killing of Mr. George Floyd, this stands and may be the largest movement in the history of the United States. The largest movement in the history of the United States. Hopefully, and you and I, Alex, again, spoke before coming to camera about how this is different. And it may be because during this COVID-19 pandemic, we have the chance to actually hear and take in the message that has been delivered for years, but we have not received it. And maybe we're receiving it a little differently because we're all taking a deep breath and pivoting during the time of the COVID-19, right, Alex?
Yeah, absolutely. I think, being that there's more eyes, everyone's watching, and everyone's really just saying, hey, we all want to come together. We're tired of all this stuff. We're all going to come together, work together, in these fields that I've worked in. I mean, everyone's looking to just come together and work together. And so I think now, you're seeing really the bind and bond of, New Mexicans, especially here in our state. I can't speak for other states, but here in our state, everyone really rallied around and was like, how can we all be supportive? And I think that's being able to have the conversation on a corporate level to a government level. I mean, that's all you can ask for, is us having these conversations and seeing what can we all do to support each other? And that's what it comes down to.
That's exactly right. Hey, let me post up a couple more links here. We got a little 5-year-old who opened up a lemonade stand, was going to sell lemonade for $1. Then he heard a responder who'd been injured and decided to take that money that he was raising for himself and give it to that first responder. And he ends up raising more than $3,000 to help with that firefighter's medical bills. His sister helped him post on social media, and it was really, really amazing. So there's a story that'll warm your heart. Those of you that know me know that I've never been a real space enthusiast, but I have been an enthusiast for Spaceport America because I want to see us diversify our economy, and we've taken a deep dive in investing in that shot to have a presence in the space economy. And Virgin Galactic, being our #1 tenant there at the Spaceport America, to unveil the interior of its spaceship that it's selling trips to space for however much. Alex, you've already put down your $1,000 deposit, right?
Oh, you know what? My son he's going to work at NASA. That he's a space engineer. So my son is part of NESB, And if you don't know about NSBE, it's the National Black Society of Engineers,
Yep.
and ran by Viola Henry. And he just loves that. Like, so you know, we're going down to Alamogordo, and we're gonna go and see everything. And again, he's gonna be much smarter than me, and so pushing him to do much more better than us. And that's all you can ask as from as a father, is your son does a lot better than you. And so just giving him that exposure to go and like, yeah, I'm gonna have to put that $1,000 down because he's gonna make me. So
That's awesome. That is awesome. Well, they're getting ready to do that. They go up about 50 miles into suborbit, and it's going to be so you can make sure and get the date when they're going to do that. Let me see here, July 28th. But maybe take note of that for your 9-year-old to make sure he gets to stay tuned in. Now, you know that we also have. Oh my goodness. Yeah, I've asked him to join me on my show, and now I can't. Oh, holy cow, never mind. I don't want to embarrass myself because I can't remember my neighbor's name. It's Alex also. Alex, but he runs a flight camp. He's
Alex Carruthers.
Thank you. Yes. Holy cow. Alex Carruthers, I hope this is the one morning you're not watching. I'm sorry, brother. I apologize profusely. I couldn't remember your last name, Alex. But so you know Alex, and hopefully your son gets tuned in and tied into that camp.
Yeah, as soon as he gets a little bit older, so one more year, we're gonna send him down over there. So he'll be ready to go. I think he'll be great. So
I love it. All right, let me just put up a couple more quickies here. It's 9:15. Let's get going here. I wanted to put up the link. As always, just a bang up job on bringing the news. And they have a single story here and landing point about celebrating in New Mexico during the coronavirus. And they have the link to show you if you're here in Albuquerque. We've got the 4 quadrants. And follows the governor's orders. I'm really concerned about what's going to happen in 2 weeks. If people have big gatherings and big barbecues and the neighborhood, we have our young people. The young people in New Mexico are all right. Hopefully that's going to be working okay. So there's the link to KRQE. And let's get over to Alex Horton. This guy is absolutely Mr. Incredible. He graduated from Highland High School in Albuquerque's International District, that district that we talked about earlier that I love so much that my wife has invested almost half her life in. And he graduated back in 2010, and he left to California to go get this broader vision. And then he said, I got to bring my vision. I got to bring my passion. I got to bring my love for community back to the place that raised me. And that is into the International District in Albuquerque, New Mexico. He could only be away for 2 years, and then he came home. And he had this vision of building that district's first economic development center. And he did just that. He developed the International District Economic Development Center much after the model, if I may, and maybe Alex, you have to correct me, but I don't think so. You really kind of looked to what was going on in the South Valley Economic Development Center, and said, that is doing some great work for that area. But our international district has a little different texture, little different needs. It's a little less invested in than even the South Valley, which is another pocket of poverty in many ways. And we need our own economic development center, and that's what I want to create. And at the young age of just 26 or 27, because I believe it was a year ago that we announced that this was going to happen, and I think it was just 6 months ago that we actually cut the ribbon. back in December 2019, right? And I'm going to post a link to that video, right, Alex?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Yes. And so on this 4th of July, we get to have a real Albuquerque patriot, a man who is changing the economic development landscape of the city of Albuquerque, hence the state of New Mexico, our Tierra del Encanto, the land of enchantment. And on this birthday day of Patricia L. Chavez, which is also Independence Day. So PLC, happy birthday, my dear friend. I don't know if you're on this morning. She almost always joins me after her morning walk. I don't know if she's with us today, but I do know that today's her birthday. And we are so pleased to be able to wish her a happy birthday on this 4th of July, Independence Day. And that's what Alex Horton is working every day to do, to create independence in the International District for families and entrepreneurs. Alex Horton, welcome to Cafecito con Colon, also known as Brian Colon's Extrovert Therapy.
Hey, thank you for having me, Brian. This has been great. A little bit about Brian. Every time I was at some type of event, I always see Brian. I didn't know how. One time I went from one event to another, and I was just like, I think, me and Brian were on the same train, and we were at the 2 events in one day. And so a little neat, even before, thank you, Brian, for giving this platform and doing this six week long program that you've been doing. But also, when the new KOB director came, Brian was there, a room full of Black folks, and then we're looking, and they're like, "Who's that guy?" And it's Brian, and people are laughing because they're like, "Of course, Brian's there." And late at night, early mornings, his commit to the community, I think, is unprecedented. I mean, he's on the west side, the east side. I mean, he's representing for Albuquerque and New Mexicans, and I really appreciate the work that you do up there at the state level.
That's very kind of you, Alex. That's very kind of you. I appreciate it. Those were great events. It's always great to see you. I always say you light up the room with that. You've got a great energy and a great sense of purpose. And I think that's where you get your energy, is that purpose. It's like, we all live
Yeah. Sorry, you were cutting out just a little bit, Brian, but I think you were referring to as like the purpose of what we're trying to do. And just kind of a little bit of backstory is, grew up in the southeast part of Albuquerque, known as the war zone, or we just called it the zone, changed to the International District. And going to Highland High School, playing sports, all I wanted to do was be a sports player. But you learn so many things from playing sports, where hard work, teamwork, doesn't matter the color of your skin when you're playing sports, because you guys are all in the grind and the grit together. So forming a brotherhood, a bond, these life skills that actually take you to the next level. I think it was developing through sports, having to juggle multiple things: sports, school, home, girlfriends, right? So like, you're balancing all of these things as a young adult, because that's what these students are. They're young adults. A lot of them, they're driving, they're working, they're going to school and working with family thing. Like, that's life. And so to me, I felt like there were so many attributes from sports that's able to translate, being competitive, striving to do better, wanting to win, accepting defeat, and working that through your losses, and not letting those losses keep you down, taking a loss and getting back up, because we've all had multiple losses. It's just the comeback and the get back is what makes it stronger. And so, even like me, I graduated, I went to Pasadena City College to go play junior college football. And then at that time, I found out that my wife now at the time was pregnant. So I had a decision to make. My father was always there for me. And so, it's at a young age, I had to make that decision: go play sports and stay out there and fly back and forth, or come back and really just continue to step up. And that's exactly what I did. Came back. The best thing that probably happened to me in my life, because while my friends and them wanted to go do other things, school, work, and a small child, you know, and I knew that he was going to depend on me. And so, you know, with that being said, I just started working. I just started, you know, manning up, doing what I needed to do. I always knew I wanted to be in business when I was in school. You know, I was buying and selling shoes before we had an online presence. I used to buy and sell shoes on Soul Collector. We used to always trade and buy things, and so I always knew about that. Regardless of what I wanted to do, I wanted to be on the business route. And so I finally got a break when I was playing basketball at Grace Hope. It's a church off of Alameda in Louisiana, and a gentleman offered me an opportunity to get into the insurance field. And I said, oh no, you know, at the time I'm going to school, I'm managing a T-Mobile store. And I'm just like, you know what, I'm okay, you know. And he said, you would really like it because it's all about doing better and helping people. And so then, you know, I went in for the interview and I realized that I was like, man, this could actually change the path. This could give my son an opportunity, for me to give him an opportunity, right? And that's ultimately what it came down to. And I said, great. So I hopped right in, and I absolutely loved it because, you know, my parents and everyone was like, well, insurance, like that doesn't make sense. Even the community, like insurance, like it's just something you pay for, you don't. But there's so many things that go into it. And I knew I wanted to be working with the businesses. I knew I wanted to be working. How did you do this? And as a young producer, you know, I'm asking these seasoned business owners, how did you get started? What did you do? You know, yeah, we're working on their insurance and ways that they can mitigate their risk and lower their risk, and adding in safety programs. But I really wanted to know, how did you do it, and how did you make it work, and how are you managing this 50-person company, this 30-person company, this, and their local people employing it. And I loved it. And that got me to the clients that had maybe the 1 or 2 employees, or the no employees that I was working with, were missing certain things that I knew these bigger companies, you know, they knew about. They knew how they were running it. They knew their accounting. They knew their bookkeeping. They knew their stuff. And so then I would take that time out to then work with these companies off the cusp of just saying, hey, you know what, I'll help you work with these things and put some things together. And that's what really got me into wanting to get into this work of really helping businesses, because I knew it was more of the minority businesses when I was working with were missing some of these things. And I was like, man, this would just be a great opportunity to kind of get into that. And so that's what kind of got me on that path. I ended up getting bumped in with Michael Jefferson and Vanessa Ronhorst, and they were running a project, City Navigators, and you know, we kind of connected, and there was about 3 months left, and so I kind of hopped in with them, and you know, just from there we made strides. You know, we were helping businesses get open. We were getting them finding ways to get them funding, working on their books, working on their P&Ls, cost analysis. And at the whole time, I was curating like a small survey in the community of what the community would support there in the ID, and kind of what resources are missing, right? Because there's business development centers. You know, you have SCORE, you have WES, you have SBDC, you have these places, right? But they were just like, in our community, if I have to leave my daughter at home with her brother and I have to go all the way downtown, and if there's an issue, it's going to be a little bit hard for me to get up, versus I'm 2 minutes right around the street, right? So really being convenience and a neighborhood hub, and where I feel comfortable, right? Because if we don't know all what it takes to start a business or run a business, just get through those doors, you might have had to go through so many other obstacles. So if we're working together, you have to feel like, I got to be able to leave, or I'm not going to be able to stay for this whole time because I got to get back home, versus saying, hey, we're right down the street, you know, right in the neighborhood. And that was really what I wanted to make it a convenience. You know, we're working with most households that are 1-car households. So the other person might be walking or taking public transportation. And so just really making it more of a community hub, to where it's going to be easy access to resources. And so, you know, the concept that I really liked and modeled was like, you know, the co-working spaces. So you have like the fat pipes, the free ranges, and other co-working spaces, to where it could really be really inexpensive to have a workstation and be able to have access to a conference room, right? As a startup business, or as a business that works from home, you know, hey, I just need a spot that I can, but I can't afford the $200 a month executive office suite, or even $100 a month is just too much. So we were like, hey, if we opened up a co-working space, but then also gave them that back end resources, um, you know, kind of putting this whole thing together, kind of making a hybrid model of what the Navigator program would do, and kind of how these incubators, how they incubate the clients in, but we have it to where it's just very loose and relaxed, to where it fits the entrepreneur's needs. And I think that's the whole key, is meeting people where they're at, regardless of where they're at in the process. And those are the supports that we wanted to bring in, because people say, well, oh, we're not a big company. No, the best thing is, I call them NBBs, neighborhood based businesses, right?
Mhm.
Like there's a gym that got started on 605 San Mateo, Stretch Fitness. My buddy Carino, we helped him out a little bit with that space, getting some stuff set up. Now, right next to it, we're working with a lady who's opening a flower shop right there, and she didn't know where to go, and she kind of had her things in place. Now, this was a strip center in the neighborhood that had two vacants. And then also in the back of it, it was an apartment that had a lot of drug use out of it, right? So as much as economics also helps clean up areas in town, and bringing businesses and letting the community actually work to solve the issues. So there was a drug person in the back. We ended up being able to get him kicked out, because he was using drugs. Yeah, it was just bad. It was a bad situation, because there's now a gym getting ready to operate. So actually, Carino and them got that guy out. Now the managers.
I just have to interrupt you and ask you now, is that what you call him because he's your Carino, or is his name Carino? I can't, the first time you said it, I let it go. The second time I can't. Is he
No,
your Carino? Or is that what you call him? Carino, mi Carino.
no, his name is Carino.
That's awesome. That's awesome.
Uh, and now he has someone, now his managers and them live in the back. And so then they were able to get that out. And I look at it as, now it's an activated space. And the whole thing about, the thing about crime and things like that, once when a space can get activated, it can draw down that crime, because it's activated. People are using it. People are there, eyes on the street. And so that's ultimately what we're doing. We want to help start neighborhood-based businesses, but then also help them stay in the neighborhood, right? So
Agreed. Agreed.
if you're working and doing good and you're starting it, well, this base that supported you during this, let's find a spot in the neighborhood that you can also then hire people from the neighborhood, support the local community, and then they can say, look, I've gotten support. I'm going to be willing to support someone else in their dreams. And it just kind of is a trickle down effect. And yeah, it's going to be a slow process. It's not a overnight thing. And, just like business though, it's a marathon, not a sprint. So
That's
there's,
right.
there's no get rich quick schemes. People, oh, well, I just got this idea. Make this is going to be boom. It's like, man, let's think about that, because there's no, there's not a lot of, now there's breaks, and there's places that you get lucky and you land things, but it's hard work. And if you're already willing to make that step, turning your side hustle, right? Because individuals we work with are working full-time jobs, right? And now this is their side hustle, that they really want to turn this into what they do full-time, because that's what you love to do,
Well, my side hustle is just going to be making time to talk to Alex Horton, because I could listen to you for hours, buddy.
No.
I just need to find somebody to pay me to do it. Hey, that's pretty awesome. Look, you are all about removing barriers in the international district so people can reach their maximum potential and entrepreneurs can thrive and build up and lift up that community that is known as our international district here in Albuquerque. We're grateful for that. Let me just, I want to just redirect us on a thought that we had. You brought up our wonderful news director, who was the first African-American woman to lead KOAT News, Channel 7. She took over for a real icon in our community, Mary Lynn Roper. And Mary Lynn Roper was at the station for 41 years. And she walked in, and that's Ms. Walden, walked in and owned the place. She brought her wonderful personality and smile to Albuquerque, California. But she's the regional director for KOAT, which of course is the ABC affiliate. And that's the reception Alex was talking about. I just wanted to give credit to where credit was due, which is the KOAT for bringing in that African-American woman who is a superstar and charming woman. And I posted a quick story to that because I wanted to make sure we got that right. Lots of folks are giving you love on these comments, not the least of whom is our dear friend, Director of Creativity of All That Is Good in New Mexico, Carlos Contreras. Carlos just loves your work. He wants you to trademark that neighborhood business expression that you use, neighborhood built business, NBBs. And he wants us to meet people more than halfway. And part of that is because as a man of color, Carlos understands the inherent systemic barriers that are in place for people of color and the marginalized in our community. And that's really in this second half of Cafecito con Colon. I wanted to really get an opportunity to learn a little bit about your lived experience, how you positive energy, everything you do.
I'm sorry, Brian, could you say that one more time? It was kind of cutting out.
I wanted, Carlos talked about meeting people more than halfway. And that's because he understands about the systemic barriers that exist for people of color. And it's a perfect segue as we, go into this second half of our visit to talk about Alex Horton's lived experience. You bring such a positivity to our community, but I know that hasn't come without the backstory of the challenges you've had to overcome, the incidents of racism that you've had to experience and get on the other side of. And I'm hoping you'll share a little bit about that with us, the lived experience of Mr. Alex Horton.
Yeah, so I think even for me, I grew up in such a diverse home. You might not be able to see it, but my mom is white with red hair, and my dad is black. And so, for me, I always had a different experience when it came with just growing up in an interracial household. And, everyone thinking when my mom would come in to drop off my snacks or drop off something, stating I was adopted, like, oh, you must be adopted, and I'm like, that's my mom. And they're like, oh, you're adopted. And, for me, my experience in New Mexico was a lot different because, when you're growing up, and no one really looks like you at the school you go to. When I was going to Whittier, I always vividly would remember this is like, man, I wish I was light. I wish I was light. I wish I was, because all your friends are, right? And you're different. And so I think that was a big thing that not a lot of people talk about, especially when you're growing up mixed, right? Because I'm light. So my other friends know, oh man, you're light skinned. And so dealing with that because the world sees you as a black person, right? But for me, it was like having to overcome, like just being accepted, like, oh, okay, I'm okay with being different. I'm okay with being dark, and I that's one of the experiences in New Mexico, being that we don't have a hugely black population, right? Middle school, when my mom and them, when we moved out of the Southeast to move to the Southwest, I went to Truman Middle School. And I had a big old fro. I have to send you a picture so you can put it out. But I had this huge fro, and that was my name, right? And everyone thought
I want to see that.
I will send it to you. It could fit a ruler. It could fit a ruler into it. So I, my nickname was Fro. And actually, one of the gentlemen that I went to middle school with is works at Main Bank, and he said, Alex Fro? And it was so funny because to this day, if I bump into someone, they'll still say that to me. And so big shout out to those schools and mentors. But I think growing up for me, I had maybe a few experiences. And one of the experiences that really touched me was when I was in high school with the Black Student Union. My coach and the Black Student Union person, Stacy Washington, we saved up money and we went to take a tour of the South. And that was so eye-opening to me because I'm from New Mexico, right? It's red and green. We all love each other, right? Like that's right. But when we went to where the first integrated school in Little Rock, Arkansas was, and how they had to escort her in with police, with the guard had to come in and escort her in so nothing happened. We went to Birmingham, Alabama, to where the little girls got bombed, the bombing in Birmingham. And we were in that church and we seen that effect. We went to where Dr. Martin Luther King got shot, and as a young person, like seeing this, it, as much as fun as it was so eye-opening to me because I didn't get to see how far we had came, as far as, being young and not really living through that. Right. And um, I always felt like I didn't experience that part of seeing it. Now, it might have not have been seen to me, but I didn't experience a lot of that. But when I went out there and I got to see it, and then you drive by some of these states, like in Mississippi, and you see Confederate flags and you see just like people looking at you guys as a group of just a bunch of black kids going down through the South. It was eye-opening because it's very much segregated. I look here in Albuquerque, is we're kind of spread out. Yeah, we South Broadway, but Northwest, Southwest, Northeast, Southeast, you know, we're spread out. And so when you're going into these other states and you're seeing that it's actually really still semi-segregated, right? Where boom, this is where all the black folks are. This is where all like, and you're still seeing that dynamic. And that was a big eye-opening experience for me in general, because, we're taught to love everyone, to work with everyone. And, you don't change, you don't look at no one because of the color of their skin. I was born on January 18th. So a lot of times my birthday fell on Martin Luther King Day. And so I always did a lot of studying on Martin Luther King, because it was like, hey, my birthday landed on the day that they celebrate him. So I always thought that was like, it was kind of cool when it was on that Monday and I would get the day off, but it always made me think, like, I always did a lot of research on Martin Luther King, and I always looked at that stuff, and I was always intrigued with the civil rights era, because again, I wasn't born during that time, but it's always good to see how far we came and where we're still needing to go, and that's with this whole thing. Eye-opening is now everyone's wanting to have the conversation to keep this thing moving forward, right? I mean, you got things like the NASCAR getting rid of the Confederate flag. Like, things are just like changing now. And yeah, it takes a tragedy to bring up some of this. And just kind of living here in New Mexico, it's a little bit refreshing, because again, for the most time, everyone comes together and works with you regardless of your skin and ethnicity. Now, you always have people XYZ, but again, I don't let that affect me in what I try to do, because I'll ultimately know that us people of color, we could do so much. And that's why that's why I'll always preach and always say that the 2 E's, education, economics, is an equalizer in our communities. And if we actually drive those initiatives within our own communities, like now seeing things, oh, buy black, oh, that's great, because I bet you no one even knew where those businesses were, and I think it also has come together for the Black community to support each other in these initiatives a lot, because when you've been marginalized or you haven't had these opportunities, there's always a scarcity mindset, right? Of, well, I've learned how to do this, right? I've learned, and that's systemic. When we're talking about systemic things and systemic issues, it's a scarcity mindset. Hey, I haven't had a lot, so if I get something, I'm not going to show you how to get it, right? And these aren't the conversations that everyone likes to have, but it's the truth. It's like, well, he'll figure it out. Verse, man, there's plenty of fish out there for everyone. And guess what? We're all going to do it together, and we're all going to rise up together. And I think ultimately, if that's what comes out of a lot of this stuff, we've won. We've won on those aspects of being able to bring everyone together and support one another. And not
I think
just,
that's right. I want to just point out that before we came to air, I asked you to bring that quote to camera, and and you switched it up a little bit, but I really want to put an emphasis because you are all about the entrepreneurs in the International District. And you said that education and entrepreneurship are the great equalizers. And that entrepreneurship translates to economics, right? So like you could actually have the 3 E's. We're going to mark all this stuff, okay? We're going to do that. We're going to do that. We're going to take Carlos's advice. You got a big fan out here, a buddy of yours from middle school who I've had the honor and privilege of mentoring. He's my little manito, and I am just together football court in middle school. Arturo Lozoya.
Oh yeah, that's my guy, man. Oh, he's doing great stuff as well too. And he was always a joy. He was always a joy to be around. His nickname was Van Diesel. He had this bald head. He looked just like Van Diesel, man. But and I think now he's gotten a little buffer and stuff like that. So he's always been a joy. Always a good guy. Always a good guy. So good.
Right. Talk to us a little bit about maybe I was thinking a couple of things. One, when we talk about investing in communities that have been on the margins, about investing in communities of color. This last week, the city council and the mayor got behind a substantial investment, or at least a first investment that has 2 commas in it for the communities of color and the Black community here in Albuquerque. And there were some things that were said that weren't super comfortable, and you probably didn't tune into the whole like I did, but I can tell you that some of the comments were pretty paternalistic and could be received as pretty condescending, and I want to applaud the city council and the mayor for taking the lead on really empowering the community for determining what process they want to embrace and where they want to make those investments. And Alex, I think part of that you get for. The Albuquerque Community Foundation invested in you with one of its grants. The community invested in that space and place on Wyoming because of your leadership and your vision. So I just want to applaud you on that and make sure that you realize that you planted some of the seeds of what we're experiencing now when it comes to a deeper commitment and investment in the community.
Well, I always look at it as, if we're trying to do good and do better, it's like, hey, you know what? We're going to put our first foot forward and then also back it up and put first dollars in, because when you're trying to do good, and if you're like, hey, I'm fully invested, we're fully going to lay this thing out on the line. And then people are like, well, wow, you're fully invested. We can come behind that, because regardless of what happens, you're not going to let this thing go away. And so I think that, planting these seeds and showing that, the biggest thing about it is that we can be the drivers in fixing things in our own community. And with Charles Ashley and them being able to pull those funds into the One Albuquerque Fund, yeah, the whole plan wasn't in place yet, but it's just getting it there so then we can have a plan. It's easy to plan, oh man, with $7 million, we could do X, Y, Z, right? Okay, how do we get that? Well, now we have $1 million. Now, how does that look like? How do we want that impact to look like? How do we want that outcome to look like? And now is where you can drive these conversations and bring people to the table and really make these things work. And so I applaud Charles for hanging in there and just standing his ground and just letting him know, like, hey, we're gonna bring this in, and then we're going to figure it out. Like, because if we never had anything to see how we're going to figure it out, it's all just a pie in the sky idea, and that's the same thing like the center. We're going to build it. We're going to put it together. And then we're also going to adapt. I mean, during COVID, you talked about pivoting. Our biggest pivot was saying we're going to do everything online. We're going to have being able to do a cost analysis online. We were helping a lot of clients getting through the PPP loans and trying to submit. And one of the biggest things, especially in our community, we were lacking on the finance side of structuring, of having these documents ready. So when, I call it the ready to bank docs, like you're ready to go to the bank docs at any given moment. But if you haven't had that training on that, or if that wasn't, if you're just making your product or selling your services just to make your living and go by, you might be not paying attention to keeping that thing updated every week. So now we're trying to see, how do we integrate these to have your ready to bank docs at any given time? And we'll do the audits. I'm gonna be like you, Brian, and do the audits. Hey,
That's
we want
right.
to be ready to bank docs, and we want to make sure you have them, because when that first wave went through, none of the minority businesses I was working with got anything. Then the second wave, the community foundation was like, hey, we were going to put a project together, Project Preserve, and I was like, oh, this is actually great. We can have a little bit of capacity to be able to support these businesses to get through the PPP program. We actually hosted a seminar with Moss Adams on just now, how do you spend your PPP money? How do you use it? How do you account for it? And when we were walking clients through the process, they, no one was an expert when all this stuff was rolling out. So if someone deemed themselves as an expert, it's like, no, we're doing a lot of reading, a lot of studying. Things were constantly changing. But when it kind of calmed down and we were actually get people in, they were like, oh, this really did work. And that first thing that came out is the SBA is not lending to any Black businesses, right? I can only say from the standpoint that we were working with was some of our businesses weren't ready. Then they got ready. Then we were able to get it going through the thing. Now, there was an issue with the banking side. We're not having a really strong banking relationship, right? So we're going back to the finance side and a barrier. If you don't have the strong banking relationship, which, if you don't have a couple $100,000 in the bank to really have that strong banking relationship, they're going to the top tier first. Okay, we got to go XYZ. We're going to process those applications first. The person with 3 employees is at the bottom, right? Now, working with Project Preserve, we were able to work directly with some banks that were able to work with our smaller clients right away and kind of get them in and push them to the forefront. And those are those.
Can you provide us, and maybe if you email me, I'll snap them up on this chat, kind of a list of those ready to bank docs. Carlos is asking for that, and I suspect you might have a checklist. And if that's something you can send to me, I'm happy to.
Yeah, I'll shoot it over, and I actually owe Carlos a call. So, Carlos, we'll get together on Monday. That sounds good, my friend.
There you go. I'm holding everybody accountable here. We got to bring Carlos and Alex together, the dynamic duo. Look, I always say, and I've said it so many times on Cafecito, since I had Carlos on in one of my early shows, probably one of my first 5 episodes or 10 episodes, I think. We're over 100 now. But Carlos said, how do you spell coronavirus? P-I-T. And I've been using that ever since, that expression. I want to take the last one of the things I want to be able to do today. We've got about 10 minutes left, Alex, and I wanted to see if you would be willing, because one of the pieces of feedback I got from our viewers is to kind of see if I could dive into the lived experience of Black women and men who are raising children. And a little bit of lived experience and maybe how it was as painful as others. And you talked about that a little bit, but how do you, you've got a 9-year-old, a 4-year-old, a 2-year-old. How do you provide them comfort when they see what's going on in our community, particularly for your son, right? Like he's 9, he gets it. He sees what's going on.
Yeah, I think we had that conversation very early. Like, again, my wife is Hispanic, right? Again, interracial marriage, and he's seeing it like, hey, like what's going on, and actually having that conversation. But then he also knows that he says that's not right. Teaching your son, your daughters right from wrong and knowing what's right from wrong, they'll pick it out. They'll know that's not wrong. Why did that happen, Dad? What does that mean? And having that conversation and just letting him know that, hey, some things are not equal. Some things in parts of the United States and areas, some things are not equal. And you also got to make sure that, you're always doing the right thing. And, one thing that I was always taught by my mentors is you got to be twice as good at certain things. And that's on all aspects of things you do. And so having those conversations, yeah, it's tough because, my son's just like me, talks with everyone, doesn't have a bad friend in sight. Right. And so that's kind of where he's just not, didn't get it. Like, that doesn't make sense, because I have friends of, all kinds of different races. And so I would say that the toughest thing was just having to have that conversation with him. But I mean, I would say some of the experience as Alex as a young dad, as a teenager, right? I mean, I think that again, I'm 28 going on 38, like because it's like
38. What are you talking about? 48, man. You got a lot of miles on those tires, man. You're hitting your stride. I mean, at 28, let's see, 28. Man, I was finally finishing my bachelor's degree. It took me, I was on the 10-year track, but not for a professorship. It was 10 years to get my bachelor's degree.
Man, I tell you, a kid, a son, a child, a daughter, they will accelerate your life to a light year. You thought you're stepping on the gas. People are turning 21. I have a 2-year-old. It's like he needs to make sure he has XYZ. I got to make sure I'm teaching him with manners. I'm a young dad, so I took that as a competitive thing where people were like, well, young parents, they don't know what they're doing. And honestly, I can say that between me and my wife, we raised an excellent young boy with respects, with manners. And, I credit him to making me grow up faster, right? Hit that accelerator and grow up faster. And yeah, it was a struggle. It's not hard, it's not an easy task. And I always talk about that because that's adversity, right? Boom, you found out you're having a child at being 18 years old. You're a teenager, you're trying to get things going. And at that choice, you have a choice to make, right? To, oh, I'm gonna live in California for the rest of my life, or no, I'm gonna finish up this year, I'm gonna do this thing, and I'm gonna come back and I'm gonna set up things here. And I think that to me is like what really helped me and drove me to being of service to others, because obviously at that point it's not just each decision you make is for a human being, and wanting that person to have more opportunities than I even had, and exposure. And that's also helped me seeing where the gaps are in our communities, right? Of exposure, right? Exposing him to he loved Lego, so it's like, this is my engineer right here, this is going to be my architect, right? And so, but then if he doesn't get to see it and they're not exposed, then they don't know. And so my whole thing is like exposure, 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 and just growing up through that process. I mean, me and him kind of grew up together, so it's we go play golf together now. He's a better golfer than me, but it's like, I think that was the thing that really helped me to get to where I'm at now. Like I said, 28 going on 38, due to that. And I always give my family credit. And after that, we added two more, two daughters.
I love it. Well, you are not, you don't just have activity, you have productivity
Yeah.
in that department. Way to go. I am thrilled to be able to have you share that. I will tell you that Chad Cooper says that it accelerates your gray hairs too, but I find it ironic that Chad's the one that says my hair on the head. I can't imagine. And Santiago is a great kid, and Chad's all, oh, it gives you gray hairs. Chad, you be quiet. You don't even have any hair. What are you talking about, Chad? Talking about. And Carlos was ready for you to run for mayor, so make sure you get the first contribution from Carlos Contreras. We'd love to have you be a part of the elected political landscape, because it's not just that we want you part of the political landscape, because you have already done that. You are always welcome to the table because you brought such passion to your work. And I think that any elected official, clearly in Bernalillo County, that doesn't know you is not in the loop and not doing their job. And Nancy Burse is on here. And she's a fan and obviously a huge advocate for the international district. And we're ready for you to announce for mayor, according to Carlos Contreras.
No, I was just on a call with Charlie and Nancy on this week, and so I think there's some great things, like their love for the ID has just been so great, and how they really want to see it transform into a really community driven program of developing the area, and I'm all on board for that. So it's like it's great. I think the collaboration is always key. We're always looking to collaborate with more individuals. We know that one group can't solve everything, but if we can help with the economic leg and someone else is working on the homelessness leg, someone else helping on the drug addiction, like it all kind of comes together, right? And really giving the individuals in the neighborhood an opportunity and resources to get to where they want to get.
So is that International District Economic Development Center going to sponsor a corner in the library for entrepreneurs? I think there would be some good bring to the library, and hopefully we can increase the capacity. And you know, we talk about scarcity mindset versus an abundance mindset. And I just know that Lynn Troyon got on this morning. And so Lynn, you're going to be so proud of Alex Horton. He's already talking about that abundance mindset versus the scarcity mindset, you know, being open as opposed to being closed. And Alex, like I said, at 28, you are so far beyond your years in capacity and knowledge and the ability to move others to the light. And what that light is, a light of empowerment, a light of having a vision that is bright and optimistic and powerful, to know that where we are today doesn't have to dictate where we are tomorrow. And I just appreciate you bringing that mindset to the International District and putting it front and center.
Well, I really appreciate you, Brian, for the platform. And again, you know, when I see you in a crowd of Black folks, and then I see a guy with the nice part hair, and I'm like, there's Brian. I see Brian. You know, he's moving and shaking, you know, like he belongs there all the time. And I just, again, it's not even just till now it's brought to light. You've already brought stuff like this to light for such a long period of time, and appreciate your leadership in the roles that you've been doing, and really do appreciate it. So
it's an honor. It's an honor to serve. Brad, Chad wants me to make it very clear. I can't end the show without making this very clear. He says he's bald by choice. You get a little of that, bald by choice. Bald by choice.
Hey,
well, I'm getting a little spot here. It ain't by choice, I promise you.
You know what? Chad has the nice reverse fade going, so nice. You know, the Uncle Phil looks good.
Uncle Phil.
Chad. Let it go. It's good, man. I like it, you know?
I love it. Look, we got great folks that tuned in this morning. They all love you, Alex. I love you. I appreciate the work you're doing to lift up Albuquerque and to make it a community that I know that we have the potential to be, and you're doing it in such an important area. I hope that at some point you can collaborate with my bride who's in that International District there at Van Buren. I know you're a Whittier kid, but Aleli's making a difference at Van Buren. And I know that those young women and those young boys of color, to see you in the classroom and to see you in the halls at Van Buren Middle School, I send this powerful message. And you be a Highland High School graduate. You're making the Hornets proud. You make me proud to know you and to be your friend. And I'm always in your corner, my friend.
Awesome. Thank you, Brian. Yeah, and yeah, anytime. I would love to get down over there to Van Buren, and anytime. You just let me know. I will be there. I will take it up. I will be there.
That is great. Any final thoughts as we wrap up today? It's about 10:02, and we're going to land this plane with Alex Horton of the International District Economic Development Center. He's making a difference, and he's just a beautiful, beautiful member of our community and makes the land of enchantment the beautiful place that it is.
Well, I just want to say thank you for everyone that tuned on. And, you know, I hope that we just continue the conversation of uplifting and empowerment to others. And I think if we all do that together, and if we all play our own part, right? If we all look at each other and say, what can I do to help? We'll all be fine. And that's my biggest driver in this thing. And I'm appreciative of everyone that's tuned in. Brian has a great thing. I haven't even been able to drink my coffee because he just once when he gets me talking, he's like, oh, we'll just let him go.
Let him go. I love Alex Horton. I love New Mexico, the Tierra del Encanto. Happy 4th of July, Independence Day. But let us take a moment during this beautiful Independence Day to really embrace the idea that we are interdependent and that we have to enjoy and embrace that interdependence if we are going to have any independence. Alex Horton, thanks for empowering those folks in the international district here in our beautiful city of Albuquerque. Thanks for being you. We love you. We love New Mexico. And remember, reach out to a few folks who are alone today and make sure that they know that Alex Horton's thinking of them, Brian Colon's thinking of them, that we talked about him on Cafecito con Colon, because just because you're in isolation doesn't mean you're alone. Let's lift up ABQ. Let's listen to those Black voices so that we can know better and do better and be better. Let's make New Mexico the best place it can be. Happy Independence Day. Happy birthday, PLC. And thank you, Alex Horton. God bless all. Have a great day.
Bye.
Thank you. Have a great day, David Murphy. Appreciate your comments. See you tomorrow. See you on Monday. See you on Monday. We got another great week of Cafecito con Colon with Black voices lined up for you, and we'll see you at 9 a.m. on Monday morning. Thank you. God bless. Happy Independence Day.